Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Jodie Newman is a business coach who runs the Business Allotment, a place where businesses can grow. She's used networking to build a network of her own, full of trusted suppliers and people she can recommend. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Jodie.
My pleasure, Liz. Great to be here.
Now, I'm going to describe you as being a creative business coach, I think, but let's dig into your background a bit first. I noticed from your LinkedIn profile you have an MA in furniture design.
Yes.
Tell me about your career path,
yes,
Jodie.
that really useful. That really useful 2 years. No, to be fair, it was pivotal in allowing me to do what I do now. But yes, going back, so I was, a creative, I guess, by heart and by education. So I did, my degree was furniture and product design, and then I did an MA at the Royal College in furniture design. And that's really where, obviously, I was doing the practical and doing the design element, but also my fascination with more the psychology of creativity. And I think because you kind of rock up to the studio one morning and ideas would just kind of tumble out the end of your pen.
Yeah.
And then the next day, you couldn't think of an idea if your life depended on it. And I was fascinated by, and massively frustrated by what was going on. And I didn't know what was going on. And is there a cheat? I mean, this is what it will get. Can we cheat the creative process? So I started to do a lot of reading and research around it kind of in my own time. And that kind of went on. I mean, I'm still doing it, but I had a decade of where I was doing quite a lot of this reading and research. And that's, I think, what inevitably led me to what I'm doing now, which is applying a creative process and, kind of shoehorning and jamming small businesses with ideas, because I think it's the most powerful way you can grow a business.
Yeah. So what made you become self-employed? Why did you take that leap? And when did you take that leap?
So the Business Allotment is 21 years old. I mean, it makes me feel sick just saying it. This month, February 2024. And what made me do it? Well, I'm an inveterate planner and I'm not a risk taker. And ridiculously, I started my business literally on the back of a utility bill with a Sharpie and a small mind map, because I'd worked in marketing agency side for a decade, and I knew I wanted to work for myself, set up my own business. I'd seen the power of the creative process in the agency, because I'd set up an idea generation tool, a format, and it helped us increase our pitch win rate. We used to invite clients in to be part of generating ideas for their marketing briefs, and they loved it. And I just knew there was a kind of a magic and a power to this, that I wanted to be, the full thing that I did. But being a bit of a kind of a planner and wanted to do things properly, I thought, right, I'll go and get another job and do some training and work as a trainer in soft skills to really get lots of kind of facilitation experience, that kind of stuff. And I got made redundant on my second day.
Oh, wow.
At that job. Like, okay, I'm trying not to take this personally, but this feels wrong on so many levels.
Yeah.
So I sat in my lounge in my armchair and cried for 24 hours. Not least because I'd spent £300 on presentation materials for the interview.
No.
So that all went down the drain. And I thought, right, I'm going to do it. I cannot be at the whim of other business owners, ideas and decisions that are completely out of my control. So I just sat there and I mind mapped, and I got on the phone and I called up everyone who I had made kind of working relationships with, and I just basically said, hey, can I come in and try stuff out and do a thing, and is this going to be useful for you? And it was really kind of back it stuff. And off I went. And that was 21 years ago.
Wow. And Business Allotment, I love the name. Why Business Allotment? And you do have a bit of a gardening theme going on, I have to say, through all your programmes and so on. How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, there is not a gardening metaphor I won't strangle in pursuit of a marketing tagline. It has to be said. So really, I actually rebranded after the economic crash of 2008-9.
Yeah.
Because up until that point I was doing pretty much 80% idea generation. So I would go into businesses, like I used to work quarterly for Dorothy Perkins, the high street retailer, and work with their PR and marketing departments and facilitate a day of, okay, what's the big in-store idea for autumn winter? Or I'd go into places like ITN Source or Yahoo, who were working on a launch, and I would work with the team to generate ideas around that challenge. At the point of the crash, and I built a great business, it was all word of mouth. It was lovely. I could have done that till I kind of fell off my perch. And then the crash happened, and my sales pipeline pretty much went from chock full to not even a dribble in the space of about 3 to 6 months, including then in the next 2 to 3 years, I had my other 2 recessions, or as I lovingly call my children. So at that point, I realised I had to take what I was doing sort of 20% of the time, which was deploying all this creativity and using that creative toolkit that I'd come up with small businesses to help them in all manner of ways. But basically, in essence, it was to help them grow. So the thread for me, and that's why I rebranded, was all about using creativity to grow. And once I got to that as my kind of core sense of, what the business was all about, it was kind of a small leap into, okay, well, it's kind of like an allotment. And that's where it came from.
Yeah, I love it. So who are your clients? You mentioned small businesses. Are they all small businesses? And are they from any kind of particular sector?
So we have a bit of a variety, and I think, and I've talked to a lot of creative businesses who get slightly panicked by this notion of, perceived wisdom of niching. And I think for a creative business owner, the niche has to be quite carefully thought through, because the variety is what feeds part of the creativity. So for me, I work with a huge range of creative businesses, everyone from voiceover artists to graphic designers, photographers, videographers, and so on. And that variety in itself is lovely. But I also work with non-creative businesses. But I find that the people that come into the allotment are those that some way want to disrupt their industry. So weirdly, I work with a lot of accountants, IFAs, people like that, business HR, business service people. But when I look at the clients who are in the allotment, they are all the disruptors in their field. They do something different, and they all do their differently.
Yes.
But they are not ever what you would perceive at whatever, the bog standard accountant is. It's definitely not them. So I do have quite a broad range. I guess the thread through all of them is that they are either creative or they're kind of open to creativity because they want to do things differently. But yeah, I do have quite a broad range, and I work with micro businesses and I work with bigger agencies. So very recently I spent a day with a digital marketing agency. I did another day with a social enterprise. So it is a real mix of size and shape, really.
Yeah. So tell me what the business allotment offers.
So if you come into the top gate of the allotment, here comes the metaphor warning. Many will die in pursuit of this explanation. We have the cultivator sessions, which are where clients work one-to-one or one to a small group. So I might work with a kind of a small board. And they tend to be online, the cultivator sessions. And really, it's whatever business challenge that business is facing. I do a lot of brand story sessions because clients will come and talk to me about, I want, better client retention, or I'm launching a thing. And my first question is, okay, tell me that story that you need to take to market. And often it will need a bit of a dust off. It will need a little bit of work to find the differentiator. I think the power of the small business is that you can evolve your story to stand out, and your story should be a moving entity because your industry is as well. So I will often start there, but those cultivators can be, all sorts of things, as long as I can apply creativity and help the clients I'm working with come up with ideas, and I will throw ideas into the pot, and we'll work very collaboratively and creatively on that business challenge. Then at the bottom of the allotment are the business sheds, which is the online business growth clubs. I have currently 5 sheds a month because I cap the membership really small. So it's a small group of business owners, and I give them new tools to put in their kind of business owners toolkit every month. They get time to really focus on the growth actions. It's a very creative approach. I design all my own tools, so they really are kind of fit for purpose for the small business owner. It's a really creative approach. We have a compost heap. I mean, who wouldn't? We throw our crap on, and because I think as a small business owner, it can be a lonely place sometimes. It can be a place where you're in your very own echo chamber, and the only other place you kind of hang out is social media, which, as we all know, can be as useful as it can be harmful to your own ability to see what you're doing and make some decisions about where you're going. So yes, it's a very kind of supportive, safe space to really explore ideas and every month move your business forward. And then we have a hybrid model called Shed Squared, which is your shed membership, but 1-to-1 as well every month, to really kind of move that growth at a pace.
Yeah. Now, I've visited your shed a couple of times, and I know you like to start off with a creative warm-up. Why is this important, and can you give us an example of a creative warm-up?
Yes. So I love a creative warm-up, and I get, all my clients to do it, whether I'm in the room with them or not. The importance is, as we all, we are all, especially as business owners, our mental load, our kind of Rolodex of to-do stuff is kind of spinning at a great rate. And creativity for me is another thing where, you wouldn't launch into a 100-meter sprint without doing a bit of limbering up.
Yeah.
And the creative warm-up or the workout is exactly the same. You're limbering up that part of your brain that kind of will give you the creative heft to think differently. And I've got hundreds of warm-ups that I use. So I have a giant Polo. You don't have to have a giant one. You can have a packet of Polos on your desk. And I'll often say, right, set your timer for 1 minute and write down as many different ways you can use a Polo as you can possibly think of. The wilder, the better. And you can't write down, to freshen your breath or to suck on. It has to be, a halo for a hamster, or a spaghetti measurer for someone who's not very hungry, and so on and so on. Or you draw. I make my own tools. So I have one where I've created these white clean cards, but you can just do it very simply on a Post-it note. You draw a lemon. And you'd need zero drawing capabilities. You literally do like an oval with 2 bibbly bits on the end. And then in a different colour pen, you have to turn that into something else.
Yeah.
And that's a really good one to use in a team if you're doing it, because it will provoke laughter. That is actually the best state for creativity. So when you come to a shed meeting, rare is a shed where we're not laughing within the first sort of 10 or 15 minutes, because that is super important in terms of a mindset shift to leave behind what's going on and get laughing and get doing something different. Also, using your hands is a really good thing. We're getting more and more out of the habit of drawing stuff, writing stuff. This is all going to help you access your creative brain. So I encourage all of that as often as possible.
And how does this sort of creative process, this creative thinking, how does that make a difference to a small business?
Well, I think probably the best way to sum that up is the feedback I get the most from people in the allotment, my clients and shed members, who more often than anything else I hear say, I've never thought about my business in that way. And I've had people, I was working with an accountant who's been running his business for 40 years, and he kind of sat back and said exactly that. And I think he was, and it was kind of like, I didn't realise there was another way to think about my business. But I'm here now, and and as soon as I often talk about it, as a business owner, we have an inside out view of our business, which is brilliant because we know it, we run it, we can do lots of things without really having to kind of expend much effort in thinking about it because we know it so well. Inside out is the worst perspective for creativity. Outside in is the creative perspective. So when I work with my clients, it's almost like I kind of lead them around the back of their business and then kind of uncover their eyes and go, now look at it. And it's like, and as soon as you've changed your perspective, you start to get new insight, and that will create new ideas.
Yeah.
So it's that shift of perspective, that I can help people do, because it is tricky to do it on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you've also you've written a book as well, haven't you, Jodie? Tell me about your book and how that's available.
So yes, it is a pocket guide to getting your business more creative. I was approached by Icon Publishing to write it as part of a bigger range of kind of very accessible books and a whole range of topics they did, I think, in the end. So there's a little bit of a tiny bit of the theory of the process of creativity, talking people through how you could run idea sessions in your own business, and then the kind of the most of it, I guess, is a bit of a toolkit, lots of different idea generation techniques, and yes, if you just Google me, Jodie Newman, on Amazon, it will come up, yeah, it's a very practical way of just thinking about how do I make my business more creative.
Yeah. So do you have any tips for introducing creativity into our working days?
Yes, there's lots of them, and I think the creative warm-up is a really good one. And I think if you want to access a bit more creativity and to level up your creativity, we all have a sort of an ideas territory in our brain, a creative territory. And if you are steeped in creativity for your job or your hobby, your territory may well be bigger than other people's who haven't been exposed to that kind of thinking before. But even the most seasoned creative has a territory with a fence round, and you need those external tools and provocations, as Edward de Bono used to call them when he talked about creativity. I tend to refer to them as like random sparks. You need to interrupt your business as usual thinking to get to your business as unusual thinking. So for me, it's a combination of getting in the muscle, a creative warm-up. And if you sit down at your desk and spend 60 seconds every morning for a month doing a creative warm-up, you will be a better creative thinker. But also understanding that when you sit down to plan your business strategy, to think about, okay, what am I going to write in my next 6 months worth of content or newsletter, or how do I launch this new service, or how do I tell my clients I'm raising my prices? I mean, literally every single challenge you come across, if you apply a random spark, a creative tool. So I have lots of kind of ones I use as my go-tos. Brand swap is a great one. So think of a brand and ask yourself, well, how would Lego do a newsletter? How would they inform their clients of a price rise? Or if they looked at my business, what would their solution be to my problem? That's a brilliant one. And again, it's just about changing perspective. You are getting out of your own eyeballs into somebody else's. And that's a superb way of just accessing that different way of thinking. And it will generate you new ideas. Another one, let's think of the one I use quite a lot. Job jump is another good one, because again, it's about change, almost stepping into somebody else's shoes. I like to have a bit of fun with this one. So you can say, well, how would a YouTuber solve this problem? Because how would a drug dealer solve this problem? Or what if the solution had to be illegal? And you will write down an idea and go, that's utterly bloody ridiculous. How's that going to help? But once you've got that ridiculous idea, you then work it back. Okay, so how would that work for me in reality? So you're almost, then reverse engineering from the ridiculous to the doable.
Yeah.
But you've got an essence of that creative spark still left in there. And that's, you can't go from a lame idea and push it forward into ridiculousness. It's much, much easier to go ridiculous and write down ideas that kind of your toes curl and you go, oh God, and then work that back into something, because that kernel of creativity will remain, and it will help you do things differently, which will help you stand out, which will mean, your audience will see you, remember you, and engage with you at a much deeper level.
Yeah. Now, you and I met through networking.
Yes.
Why do you find networking useful? Why is it important to your business?
For me, because I am part of what I offer. So it's important for me to kind of engage people and get to know people, and for them to get to know me and my style, because I know my brand, my business, and me are not for everyone, and so should everyone, have an audience that they want and an audience that they don't want. And so networking is a great way of doing that. I think for me also, the way I work with my clients, I often kind of almost act as a bit of an informal hub. So we might work on a launch and come up with some amazing ideas, and then I'll go, right, so you need like a technical platform to do this bit. That's not my expertise, but through networking I've met an amazing person who can help you out, and so that's a huge part of why I network, to create my own network of kind of trusted resources and trusted businesses that I can plug into my clients. And also because as marketing goes, networking is probably the funnest.
Yeah.
So why not?
I think I would agree with that. Is networking something that you've done from the start of running your own business?
No, it's only really been the last sort of 11 or 12 years when I set up my business and I was doing mainly idea generation. My entire business, which was, ended up pre-financial crash, as a lovely 6-figure business with just me in it. That was all word of mouth. I didn't advertise, I didn't network, I didn't market, I did nothing. And I thought, well, I don't know why anyone's making a fuss about running a business. This is an absolute bit of cake. But yes, then the reality of, being in a crowded industry that I am in now, and having to work hard to differentiate yourself, and actually, going networking is a great way of understanding where you sit in your industry, because I like to network in places where other versions of me exist. I'm not a fan of the professional lockout. So because that tells me so much about where I am, because you may create standout at one point in time and have some very clear differentiators. But if it's any good, you'll soon have others around you who are moving towards your positioning. So it's that evolution. So, networking is so useful in terms of a business tool to help you reflect back on what you're doing. And you cannot fail but hone your pitch when you do regular networking. So yeah, I've done it for the last 11 or 12 years, and probably super consistently and very frequently in the last sort of 6 years, I would say.
So tell me about some of the networks that you belong to, and what networking has brought to your business.
So I do a bit of a mixture of membership networking and then some ad hoc stuff around it. So I'm a member of TCC, the Creative Collective, which is the funnest and the bonkerest and the
absolutely.
loveliest. Yeah. And yes, for any creative, I think, that is the kind of the first port of call. Just to see something different in networking, because it is, that does kind of stand alone for me in terms of how Martin and Ben run it, and the community that they've built there.
Yeah.
And the absolute G-force of their WhatsApp group is a sight to behold. So that's one. The Only Network, ONLE, that's another membership network. They are positioned as the network for people who like people. It's a super friendly vibe, lots of different groups, and I've been a member there for probably 3 or 4 years. And yes, a really great variety of businesses within the Only Network, which is also another, one of the reasons I really like it. And then also Creatives Network as well, another membership one. And then I will top up in any kind of week where I find I'm not doing much networking, potentially with something like an FSB meeting. So I really like those, because you can kind of sign on last minute, and you just never know who you're gonna come across, and all of that's online, because since COVID, it's absolutely, I love online networking.
Yeah, it's very easy, isn't it? You don't have to leave your house.
Yeah, you can be wearing your slippers, and for me that's always a bonus.
So why would you recommend networking to other small business owners who maybe haven't tried it yet?
I think it can just be a superb way of getting new business. It's not the quick way.
No.
I often say, for a B2B, for a business selling to other business owners, it can be a 6 to 9 month cycle before you start to significantly get any business in. But the skills that you need to be a great networker, I think, make you a better business owner.
Yeah.
You need to understand how to position yourself, how to pitch yourself, how to engage, how to give before you receive, how to develop relationships, all that kind of stuff. Because the in the room meeting is literally just the shop front, the window front. You have a browse, then you have to follow up, and you really should be creating a bit of a strategy around the process you put around your networking activity to make the most of it. But I think if you can regularly show up, be consistent, it will help you be a better marketeer of your own business and a better business owner, as I say. And you'll win work. If you're a good networker, you will get clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And make friends along the way.
Yes, actually, the best byproduct of networking there is.
So, one final question, Jodie. If people are interested in finding out more about the business allotment or how to get into one of your sheds, what's the best place for them to contact you?
So if you just hop along to the allotment, which is thebusinessallotment.co.uk, you can have a look at the information about the sheds. I run a quarterly visitor shed, which is free to come along to, and it gives you a flavour. I'm going to say it, the shenanigans we get up to. And yes, you can book on and reserve yourself a free seat. I think the next one is the end of April, but they run every quarter. And you can come along and get access to a couple of my favourite tools that I've designed to help you look at your business in a different way. And there's also an online tool shed, which is online membership that is also free. And the tool shed is packed full of resources and creative tools to help you run and grow your business.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for being my guest this morning, and I'm sure I will see you at a networking meeting soon.
I hope so, Liz. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.